Okay, let's start with a thought that is, well, it's genuinely surprising. A frozen, what we all think of as an inhospitable wasteland, is right now the focus of this quiet but critical race between global superpowers.
It is a huge
We
race.
see these sensational headlines pop up, right? Maybe about melting ice caps or, high-profile talks about Greenland. But the real story, the real significance of the Arctic, it's so much deeper than a melting glacier.
It really is, and the stakes are just enormous. Because
Ah.
this region is shifting so fast, it's going from this, remote frozen fringe right to the center stage of global strategy.
So today, that's what we're doing, a deep dive into the Arctic, its rising importance, and we're going to be guided by this really sharp piece of strategic analysis. It's from Aquavies.
Yeah, and just so we're all on the same page, it's pronounced Aquavies. The article lays out this incredible framework.
It's a really compelling one. The article argues that the Arctic sits squarely at the center of what it calls a technology, energy, money triangle. So it's linking physical geography directly to geopolitical power.
That's the core of it. Our mission today is to use their pillars of power, or POP, framework, technology, energy, and money, to break down step by step why this region holds the keys to the future.
Okay.
Seriously, if you understand what's happening up there, you get this massive shortcut to understanding the future battlegrounds of power and, economic control. We'll explore the three pillars, starting with the digital one.
All right, let's unpack this. Pillar one, technology. The article frames this so dramatically, it calls it the battle for AI supremacy, or even Space Race 2.0 within Cold War 2.0. So if this is the foundation, what's the weakest link, the base layer?
The base layer is all about communication infrastructure.
Yeah.
And its vulnerability is, well, it's immediate and it's global. The source material points to this critical incident that happened right before the Russian invasion of Ukraine.
Right, in February 2022.
Exactly. So in January 2022, just before that, critical undersea fiber optic cables near Svalbard, that's a remote Norwegian archipelago, they were mysteriously damaged.
And I think for most people listening, a single broken cable sounds like, a minor inconvenience. Maybe your internet slows down for a bit. Why does the source treat this Svalbard incident as such a critical strategic event?
Because these aren't just regular cables. You have to think of them as the true digital lifelines of the entire modern world. That infrastructure is what the source calls mission critical for transmitting basically all high-volume internet data.
So everything.
Everything. It governs GPS, it controls satellites, it allows for high-speed global communications. When those lines are cut, the whole network fractures. Put simply, the Arctic is home to this really vulnerable communications hub that connects and controls global information flow. And controlling that flow, that's critical to national security.
It's kind of unsettling to think that this physical, brittle thing under the seafloor is guiding everything from, I don't know, your DoorDash delivery route to the navigational systems of military missiles.
Precisely. If you control that network, you can control or at least heavily influence warfare itself.
And the scale of that control just grows from there.
It expands so quickly. The article really emphasizes that controlling the Arctic and the ocean is, well, it's inextricably linked to controlling the orbital domain, space. These three spheres, the Arctic, the ocean floor, and space, they form these interconnected hubs for all global information, and that flow is the oxygen for all future AI applications.
And this is where it gets really interesting on the high-tech side, because layered on top of that network vulnerability is the actual AI infrastructure. I mean, the need for massive, continuous computation. The fact is, data centers, where all the AI chips live, they use a stunning amount of energy just for cooling.
Yeah, something like 30 to 55% of their total energy is just for cooling.
Just to stop them from overheating.
And that cooling requirement is where geography gives the Arctic this massive natural advantage. The region is already cold.
Yeah.
That offers huge operational cost savings and just a dramatic increase in energy efficiency for these massive energy-hungry AI data centers.
Right. We always focus on the chips, but it's really about the heat.
All about the heat. The cost and ability to get rid of that heat safely and efficiently are central to scaling up any kind of AI infrastructure.
And it's not just about saving money on AC, right? Latency matters. Why is positioning the actual computer in a specific cold place so important for the future of AI?
Because of the applications. For something like, high-frequency trading or real-time autonomous systems, the speed at which data travels is paramount. Data travels fast, but physical distance still creates a delay latency.
Milliseconds matter.
Microseconds matter. By putting your compute power, your key network hubs in the Northern Hemisphere, you gain those advantages. While everyone is debating AI regulations, the smart players are quietly positioning where the actual compute is going to happen. Geography still matters so much.
And this whole tech scramble is accelerating these big geopolitical shifts, isn't it? Towards, I guess, independence and resilience?
Oh, absolutely. We're seeing the rise of non-Western technological independence. China, for instance, has successfully developed and deployed its own system, the Beidou Navigation Satellite System, or BDS.
So they're off of Western GPS.
Completely. It explicitly removes their reliance on it, giving them total autonomy over their own defense and commercial systems.
And for the West, this just highlights the desperate need for redundancy, for a backup plan. Does the source material get into the risks of, privatized communications in this push for resilience?
It does, implicitly. It notes the acceleration towards resilience by citing the massive deployment of Starlink satellites. The need for this backup became glaringly obvious in Ukraine.
Right, they became totally dependent on Starlink.
Totally dependent on a private company for their wartime communications when their own infrastructure was destroyed. So while Starlink provided that immediate resilience, the source material forces you to see that relying on any single system, whether it's state-run or private, it just introduces a whole new kind of risk. The Arctic, through its geography, is the hub that has to secure all of that.
That makes perfect sense. Okay, so the digital foundation is set. But moving from that, from the cold compute advantage, the melting ice is also revealing something much more tangible for global power, the natural resources that underpin everything. Let's shift to Pillar 2, energy.
The scale of uncapped energy under the Arctic Circle it's just staggering. The U.S. Geological Survey estimates for the area north of the Arctic Circle paint a really clear picture. We're talking about potentially recoverable reserves of 90 billion barrels of oil.
90 billion.
1,670 trillion cubic feet of natural gas and 44 billion barrels of natural gas liquids.
Just to put 90 billion barrels of oil into perspective, that's more oil than the proven reserves of almost any country outside of the top three, Saudi Arabia, Venezuela, Iran. This is the ultimate energy security play.
It is. If you control the zone, you completely alter the global energy map. But it's not just about hydrocarbons. The discussion also expands into critical minerals, which immediately brings places like Greenland into sharp focus.
Greenland, usually known for ice, but the article flags it as hugely strategic because of its untapped minerals. Why are those minerals so crucial right now?
They're critical inputs for modern energy supply chains, specifically for the batteries you need for solar tech, for wind turbine components, and electric vehicles. The West is desperately seeking to build supply chain resilience and reduce its reliance on the East for these base resources. Greenland essentially holds the keys to non-carbon energy independence for the Western Bloc. It's a massive strategic asset just waiting to be unlocked.
Okay, so we've seen the vulnerability of the communication cables in Pillar 1. Is the energy infrastructure facing a similar physical risk?
That parallel is absolutely crucial. Just as we saw those tech cables being severed, we saw massive, deliberate damage to energy infrastructure. The 2022 cutting of the Nord Stream pipelines is the perfect example.
Right. Europe's dependence on Russia for gas, all exposed in one moment.
Exactly. It showed that one single physical vulnerability can send an economic shock across an entire continent. The implication of the source is undeniable. Energy independence is basically synonymous with geopolitical independence. And the Arctic offers the resources and the path to get there.
So we have the resources, the energy, and we have the ability to compute and communicate the technology. What does this all mean for global economics? Let's move to Pillar 3, money. These assets are hugely monetizable, but their greatest value might be their leverage over global trade and national security.
And what's really fascinating here is how the melting ice is facilitating these massive fundamental shifts in how global trade is structured. As the Northern Sea Route opens up, new, shorter trade channels are emerging.
How much shorter are we actually talking about, and what's the immediate impact of that?
The Northern Sea Route, which runs along Russia's coast, can cut the shipping distance between key Asian ports and Western Europe by up to 40% compared to using the Suez Canal.
40%, wow.
That's a dramatic efficiency gain. It creates opportunities for multipolar supply routes that exist outside of the current Western-dominated security system. For Russia and China, this creates much more efficient paths that bypass those traditional, often U.S.-controlled choke points like the Strait of Malacca.
And this is where that crucial overlap between technology and energy creates this asymmetric leverage for certain countries. The source really emphasizes that Russia has a unique strategic asset here.
It does. It has a massive fleet of nuclear-powered icebreakers. No one else has anything like it. And that fleet is Russia's key to controlling the Northern Sea route all year round. It is essentially China's ticket into the Arctic.
So Russia has something China needs.
Desperately. It gives Russia huge leverage in that partnership.
Yeah.
The dynamic that Felina Chakrova perfectly coined the dragon bear relationship.
The U.S. strategy noted in the article is trying to use this leverage point in negotiations. What does that actually look like?
It means engaging in resource discussions that try to appeal to Russia's self-interest. Maybe offering incentives for development that don't rely completely on their increasingly dominant Chinese partner. It's a classic divide-and-conquer strategy, using the leverage from a unique technology, the icebreakers, to influence global relationships.
So if we connect this to the bigger picture, the monetary shift is profound. Can you ground this idea of moving away from the U.S. dollar with an example tied to these new routes?
Sure, for decades, global trade has been in U.S. dollars because the U.S. Navy has guaranteed the security of the sea lanes. But if a country can ship goods through the Northern Sea route, bypassing places like the Strait of Malacca and the Suez Canal, which are heavily patrolled by the U.S. Navy, they reduce their security risk a lot.
Okay.
And reducing that security risk makes it fundamentally easier for them to agree to trade deals in currencies outside of the U.S. dollar, like the yuan or the ruble, because they're not relying on the security guarantor of the dollar system anymore. That's why the money pillar is always shifting.
And naturally, this huge rise in strategic value leads directly to a security ramp-up.
Of course, the geopolitical test match is actively increasing the military footprint. We're seeing Canada expanding its Arctic presence, Norway is investing heavily in its North Navy, and the U.S. is exploring extending bases and working with Greenland. The security component is rapidly catching up to the economic potential.
That brings all three pillars together so well. The Aquavis framework shows how this whole system just builds on itself. It's a feedback loop. Arctic energy, the resources, powers the efficiency of Arctic technology, the cooled data centers, the networks.
Right.
That technology then enables alternative money systems by creating these new efficient trade routes. And this cycle ultimately creates entirely new power structures.
And that clarity is why the framework is so useful. It brings up the big question. What does total control of this frontier actually give you? The article sums it up well. The Arctic is a new frontier, like space. Pippa Malmgren calls this a hot war in cold places.
A hot war in cold places. I like that.
The country that successfully maneuvers through this area controls 4 key things at once: AI infrastructure advantages, energy independence, alternative trade routes, and critical mineral supply chains.
The article calls this dramatic shift Manifest Destiny 2.0. What exactly do they mean by that? Is it a modern form of colonization or something else?
It's less about colonization and more a recognition of this profound economic and strategic imperative. Manifest Destiny 2.0 suggests a kind of historical repetition. The belief that this massive, untapped physical space must be developed and controlled by a dominant power. And that control is essential to realizing national greatness.
A new imperative.
It's a compelling case that the new system of global power is being built right now, where cheap energy powers advanced technology to reinforce powerful money systems. We can safely say the High North News will be busy for the next decade.
That was an incredible deep dive. It really illustrates how the Aquavis Pillars of Power framework helps you order your mind in all this chaos by linking technology, energy, and money in one critical, rapidly evolving place.
The Arctic isn't just melting, it's revealing the infrastructure of the future. I'd encourage you to think about this growing tension. The tension between the world's urgent need for resilience, redundancy, resource independence, reshoring, and that ongoing global drive for pure efficiency. That tension, resilience versus efficiency, will define how this high-stakes Arctic environment is navigated.
Until next time, remember the sign-off.
Order your mind, harness your money, shape your future.